All right. So as the students are rolling in, just a quick introduction. I'm Paulo Garcia. I'm also another admissions coordinator for the graduate program. So probably received messages from me on Handshake regarding this event. All right. So I think we have everybody logging in. So I'm going to let you all introduce yourself. I'll call you each individually if you would like to share your name, which campus you're located in, which lab and program year. And then I'll start with some of the questions. So I can see James first on my screen. So James, if you want to go first.
Hi, I'm James. I'm a first-year graduate student on the Florida campus. I actually worked in industry for 4 years before joining Scripps Research, and I'm currently rotating in the SALT lab studying T-cell biology.
Up next, we can go with Diva.
Hi everyone, I am Diva, Florida campus, currently rotating in a lab that I never expected to rotate in, SB Hasi Suleiman.
Alex, you can go next.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm also a first-year student. I'm on the California campus, and I'm currently rotating in the lab of Daryl Irvin, who is in the Department of Immunology here.
Thomas.
Yeah, hi, my name is Thomas. I'm a second-year student in California, and I'm currently in the lab of Reza Gadiri in the Department of Chemistry.
Up next is Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm a second year student. I'm in Alejandro Mendoza's lab in immunology. Yeah.
And last but not least, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Bengeter. I'm a second year student in Curie Engel's lab in chemistry as well.
Awesome. So I'll go and shoot out some of the questions that were submitted by our students who were registered for the event, and you can all kind of chime in with some of your feedback if you like. So the first question is, how do you decide which graduate program is best for you, and what can you do in undergraduate to best prepare?
Sure, I can start off with that. I'd say when I was applying for graduate schools, one of the most important things I did in the cycle where I was admitted was look more in depth into the faculty available at each program. Just make sure that there's people at the schools you're choosing that are actually able to facilitate the type of research you're into. And also see whether they kind of interact with the scientific community in ways you'd like to as well. So if they publish a lot, or maybe they speak at a lot of conferences or have industry connections, that can be helpful.
Yeah, I think one of the professors was talking about this, but you don't want to go to an institute for like one person. I would say try to find at like 3 or 4 PIs that you're interested in their labs. Because what can happen is just weird things with rotations, or a lab is full, and what you don't want to do is like be in a position where now you have no labs you're interested in because the one lab you're interested in couldn't take you.
Addressing the second part of the question, like what can you do to prepare yourself? I feel like, yes, school research is important, papers are important. Also involve yourself outside of the lab. Be a human being that you can actually, talk about that when you're writing your SOP, have some personal experiences as well, have hobbies, and be passionate about the science that you're doing. I mean, because that passion eventually will show on the SOP when you write and apply or talk to faculty, engage. I feel like those are important aspects.
Yeah, I think they go off of that too. I don't think, professors here expect you to have a first person or, first author Nature paper. What they really want to see, I think, is that you're motivated and that you have like a distinct passion. So I think it's really important to like in your like summary of your undergraduate experience or industry experience to really like convey a narrative of what you uniquely want to contribute to the scientific space. So I think it's not about the results as much as it is like the intellect behind what you're doing. So I think, being able to convey that can really help.
I'll also, sorry, Alex, I'll add really fast, and then you can go. I'll also just add on that. I think it's really easy to just go with like what's been told to you of like, oh, the next step is graduate school. So like my goal is to go to graduate school, but really try to be focused on like just like what was just said, like do some self-reflection and really decide like what are you passionate about? What kind of problems do you want to solve? What kind of organizations do you want to work with? What kind of career do you want to have? Because like when they ask you about your goals, they're not asking you about getting into graduate school. They're asking you about really long-term goals and the kind of person you want to be, especially in the scientific field.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And to, again, just add on to that is, I think research experience is really the key factor, to prepare yourself for graduate school. And again, going to like the second part of the question, in some ways I feel like I'm not the best person to ask because I didn't go straight from undergrad to grad school. And I didn't necessarily do a lot actually in undergrad to prepare myself because at that time I wasn't sure, I knew like, oh, research and science is something that's interesting, but I didn't have a lot of experience at the time. But so what I can say is, whatever stage you're in, whether, you're currently in undergrad right now or, in the years in between, yeah, really getting that firsthand experience, like in you're saying, will help you to know that it's not just something that, sounds interesting, but you can know from your own experience and speak to that. It's something that you can see viably, as a career or something you want to pursue in more depth. And that, really gives you not only, I think, the experience that's necessary, but also a good reason, to apply and to know which programs are best suited for you.
Thank you all. Very appreciated feedback and perspective. So considering how competitive this program is, a bit of an introspective question, what do you think made your application so successful?
Sure, I can go first. I actually just answered a similar question in the Q&A that someone asked. But for me, I think that the 4 years I spent in industry before my application helped me become successful, not just in terms of the experience or the publications or posters, but it helped me refine what my expectations were for graduate school and what I wanted to get out of the experience. I specifically want to gain more control and ownership of my research. And we're seeing increasing opportunities for scientists that exclusively have a bachelor's degree. But I think to get to positions like principal investigators or directorships, you really have to kind of show that you're able to independently lead a project. And a PhD is an excellent way to show that.
I think a lot of people at Scripps, and not all of them, but I think a lot of people did something after undergraduate because when you're getting a PhD, it's kind of like you're a program manager. And I don't know that I could have done this straight from undergrad. It's a lot of like managing your own time, your own project, everything. I was actually a teacher straight out of undergrad. I was like a volunteer teacher in South Central LA. I did that. It made me realize I wanted to keep like communicating science. And then I went and was like a research technician for 2 years, and then I applied. So you don't have to have like, there's no one path that you can go down,
Yeah, I guess just to contribute as perspective from someone who did come directly from undergraduate school, I do think that, like, at least for me personally, what might have made me more unique was that I actually began research in an inorganic lab, and then I interned at a company that did gene editing, and then I, joined a different like glycosylation lab, and I also like majored in economics. So I think that even though it might be tough to like like depending on who you are and what your experience is, it might be tough to like show that you have all the experiences. I think trying to, if you're coming from undergraduate, show that you can do a lot of different things and have like a more wide skill set that you can learn new things with. I think that can be a really good thing to show, and I think that helped me out personally.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I just want to add on the flip side of things, because like having breadth is great, but I think it's also like for me, that was something I was concerned about, like actually applying into grad school, because I came in like when I was applying with only one research experience. I worked in one lab for 3.5 years. But I think having a depth of research and being able to speak to that experience, like, and what you learned during that can also be a really great way to demonstrate your preparedness.
I'll just tag on to what Alex said. I think that's probably, especially a lot of you are probably applying this cycle, and so it's like it's a little too late to add on a random research experience because you're probably applying in a couple months. But just play to the strengths that you do have. I think like everyone has strengths. You'll hear lots of different things that people had that got them in. I think for me, I had publications in my undergrad that I think were really helpful. I'd also applied for the NSF GRFP, which I think just looks good if you can have already just applied to that. So there's some good things to have, but also I had mentorship opportunities, and I had been on like like served in club leadership, and I had very diverse experiences in volunteer and as well as in chemistry and working in an internship opportunity as well. So just play to the strengths that you have in writing your applications.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Playing to strength. In my case, I feel like the CV was there to kind of like, highlight the achievements that I've had. It's like, it's there. But I feel like I really used the SOP to focus on the journey behind all of that. hardcore stuff. And it sounds really cool, but it's like, how were you feeling when you earned that award? How did you feel when you moved from a country with low resources doing science, and then all of a sudden you're in the States, so many resources, and but then you switched scientific fields completely, and how did you manage that? And how did you at the end like connect it all? Like, what questions were you asking yourself scientifically, emotionally, personally? I feel like highlighting that personal journey strengthened my application, but I don't really know. The committee will tell you what actually worked out. But yeah, I think.
All right, thank you all. We have a question here. What is something unique about this program that would make it worth moving cross country for? Or for some of you, to another country. So
I'd say one unique thing about the program is the amount of translational opportunity. I think this is a bit more prevalent on the California campus. As was mentioned, they have the Caliber Skaggs Center for Drug Development. They also have the Scripps Translational Research Institute. I'm currently taking the Clinical Investigations class, which is actually taught by clinicians within that institute. So I'd say if you want your research to, in the future, have more impact towards human health, then this is a great program.
I feel like I have a lot of autonomy here. That's something that I was really looking for as someone who, worked for 3 years out of undergrad. I wanted to really be able to control the progress of what I'm doing. And I think sometimes at other universities, they'll like tell you like you have to like set up rotations with someone in administration, something like that. But here you kind of do all of it. Like you directly email the PIs. And I know some people don't like that. I like that. I like to be able to be in like direct communication with the PIs and kind of like controlling my own journey. So I feel like I have a lot of autonomy here.
Yeah, I also think like one thing that we're not talking about too much is the location. Like being in San Diego, especially if you're considering going to California, is awesome. Like, grad school is always gonna have its ups and downs, but I joke that like I'm way happier here than I would be, like no shots fired, but at some other like locations that might not have exactly as Grace is showing as much to offer. So I think that like Scripps obviously has great facilities that honestly have, really helped me out. We have a lot of good collaborations and all the things that everyone else mentioned too. So it's really been great for me on a research level, but even on a personal level, like it's just a really fun experience. Like, yeah.
The fact that it's an umbrella program and there are like so many PIs from so many different fields, and you can just like take your pick or bounce or collaborate, that is awesome for me. Like I feel like the rotation I'm doing right now I wouldn't be doing in other programs that I was applying to while I was applying. So that is a really cool opportunity. Like, just
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm sure has already probably been mentioned during in all these sessions is the fact that Scripps is a research institute, so it's different, in terms of the program itself. It's not, a traditional university setting, and that obviously comes with pros and cons. But I think one of, the main pros, and I did move across the country from the East Coast over to the West Coast to attend Scripps. That really drew me in was the fact that you have this environment where everyone is focused on doing science, right? Chemical and biological sciences. And because of that, I think it just provides an environment that really fosters collaboration as well within this sort of common endeavor that you're doing. Yeah.
thank you all.
And,
Yeah, go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I add real quick? I definitely to highlight all of those things. I love living in Southern California. It's really beautiful here. So that's definitely a pro for me. But also the motto that you'll see at Scripps is science changing life. And for me, that was something that was really cool to see is like the science here. I came from a much smaller school, and to see like this is science that really impacts people, that changes people's lives. It really is like a renowned institution, as well as what was kind of mentioned earlier. When I visited schools, Scripps wasn't where I was initially planning on attending. But when I visited here, I felt like there's a level of maturity that came from being a research institution rather than just another school, that it's all graduate students and postdocs, that I think that lends to a level of maturity that I was really looking for as well.
Thank you. And a few of you touched on this, but generally, would you be able to provide your feedback on the rotation selection process, or for those of you who have already formally joined a lab, making that decision to formally join the lab?
Sure. I'm in my second rotation right now. I'm in the salt lab, as I said. I also rotated in the Kodatic lab, which was a chemistry lab here. And as the professor spoke to, a rotation is about 8 to 10 weeks, and you try to have a project that's usually associated with a existing PhD student or postdoc. But I think what's more important than completing the project or coming up with a fantastic result at the end of it is just getting an idea of whether you're going to fit in with the lab, because ultimately there is already a member in the lab associated with that project who will be able to drive it forward after you're finished. But it's more important that both you and the PI know if that's an environment you can thrive in.
Yeah, I guess speaking from someone who joined a lab, I rotated in two labs, and honestly, it is like a very, as Grace was saying, it's a very like, you have a lot of power over what you do. So some people, rotate in one lab when they join that lab, and some people rotate in three. And I think that the nice thing about Scripps is that they very much like let you do your own thing. There's deadlines, but there's not really like a lot of pressure to be like you have to join a lab by this time or that time. I know people who joined their lab immediately and some who joined it after 3 long rotations and they were really struggling with who to choose. And I think a lot of professors are really, if they have room, are very, very open to talking to you and taking you in. And there's a lot of collaboration. So a lot of people rotate in one lab, join another lab and do a joint, kind of a PhD. So there's a lot of, I think, flexibility in terms of what you can do with your rotations. And I definitely recommend that, if you get accepted, to really take advantage of that and I rotated with someone, who did like more molecular biology, and then I went to a chemistry lab. So I definitely recommend taking advantage of all the different experiences and the people you'll meet in different labs.
My PI, the lab I joined, she actually like made me do 3 rotations. She was like, I want you to have the experience of being able to like see different environments and do different kinds of science. So I was doing more genomics and like some chemistry, and then I went and did neuroscience, and now I do neuroimmunology now. So it's good to kind of have that like breadth of knowledge. Like I know things that we can now apply to my research here that I wouldn't if I hadn't done my rotations and learned those things through different labs.
Yeah, same. I feel like I came in with an idea, like, yeah, this is what I want to do, and this is the lab I want to join. And my PI was like, how about you spread your wings and actually, feel the feels of grad school? Because I feel like if you think about it, it's the only opportunity before you commit to a lab for a considerable amount of time, like multiple years. Like this is the time you can actually go around and, doing rotations, you make new friends, you learn new techniques that you can eventually apply, and it broadens your mindset. And I feel like we have to do something in a couple years or months, that is like you have to come up with a like original idea within your research. I feel like that really helps. um, Original ideas only come when you think outside the box. Rotations in different areas that you don't expect to do rotations in helps you think outside the box.
I'll just speak quickly that I like came and I joined the first lab that I rotated in, and I kind of knew where I was going to begin with, so I'm not really that exciting. But I do think it's important just to remember, like along these lines, like I came here, I started in the lab, I got going pretty fast, but I think it's good to remember just like whenever you start, like your purpose here is still an education, like your job is to learn, it's not to perform. And I think sometimes it's really hard to remember that at the beginning. You feel like, oh, I have to perform, and so I have to join a lab now because I have to have these results by whatever date you have in your mind. But just remember you're a student still. So it's all about what's ever helping your learning experience.
Thank you. And yeah, Alex, if you want to add something,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, just really quickly. I think like the one thing you can say, just based on all these responses, everyone has different experiences. Some, do 1 rotation, know which lab, some go to, all 3. That's what it's looking like for me. But what I want to add is just that I think faculty here, at least in my experience, are always very open. And that's a big advantage in terms of the rotation process. Like I'm doing like 2 rotation with, immunology faculty member here at Scripps, but I'm at the same time talking to an investigator over at Caliber who's not even part of, the graduate training faculty, but he's still very open to talking, finding ways to work around, logistical challenges, and even just, even if they might not have a spot for you based on funding or whatever other factors to discuss, where you would best fit. So I think really rotations is an opportunity as well to take advantage of just engaging with the different faculty here and figuring out where you fit best in the program.
Everybody already touched on how great it is living in California and Florida, but if you could, some students had asked about housing options and how the experience was finding housing in both locations, and also talk a little bit about the stipend. How does that compare to the cost of living in Jupiter and in San Diego?
So I actually did my master's in San Diego, and now I'm in Florida. So got the experience from both places. And yes, the weather is different. In my opinion, San Diego is too cold for me. But here, it's a beautiful beach town, Florida. We are literally located in Abacoa, which is like, it's a nice neighborhood, just as La Jolla is in San Diego. And there are a lot of places to rent houses. You can walk to campus if you like, you can drive around if you want. And there's a town place, the Abacoa Town Center, a lot of restaurants, life happening, bars if you want to go to bars. And the campus is very close to these places, and it's not that isolated. We have Max Planck right here, FAU, so it's actually very nice. 10 minutes drive to the beach. Um, I really like it. I'm loving it so far.
Sure. I can talk more about the actual breakdown of housing, food, stipend, all that. The stipend works out to about $3,000 per month after taxes, and I think that it's possible, a little bit tricky, to live completely solo in an apartment by yourself on that stipend. The university is also really helpful about finding housing or finding roommates if you want. They provide realtor services with a local realtor in the area if you're looking for an apartment. I found mine on Zillow. I also live with a roommate who also works a full-time job, so perhaps my my perspective is a bit skewed on how livable the stipend is. In terms of drivability as well, as Diva said, there's a town center here with lots of apartments that is a 10-minute walking distance, so I actually walk to school every day. I do own a car, and it's useful for getting groceries and driving around just to have fun. But yes, besides that, I'm also from Washington State, so it was a 4-day drive from home to Florida. So each day I could feel the temperature rising and rising, and the humidity rising and rising. So it's been a big adjustment in terms of climate and culture, but I'm also finding myself to enjoy Florida.
I can talk a little about San Diego. Um, I'm from Colorado, so this is almost the opposite of UT. I feel like it's too warm here almost, and I miss seasons. But I love San Diego. I mean, cost of living here, I'm not sure how it compares to Jupiter because I've never lived in Florida, but yeah, it works out to like similar per month. I think it's like 3,000 per month-ish. I would say most people pay around 1,500 a month for rent here, to live in University City, which is like probably like a 10-minute drive from Scripps. I'm a huge advocate for if you go a little more south near downtown, like I pay $1,100 a month, which is a little unheard of, but you can find it when you go like down south. And my drive is like 15 minutes still, like, but you have to go on the highway. It's hard to take public transit here. It's not, to be honest, it's not that great. But if you live in UTC, I know, which is University City, I know that you can take like the bus and some people bike. It's just that it's more uphill. But yeah, most people I would say do have cars here in San Diego. And some of us do be sitting on the 5 for quite some time after work.
Public transport in San Diego was great. Right now that I'm in Florida, I'm realizing, I got to have a car, so I bought a car. But
It
in San Diego,
doesn't
never
work for
needed a car.
me.
Really?
No,
Oh,
I feel like UTC public transit's really good, but it works out to
yeah,
be twice as long and twice as expensive to take public transit from down south to Scripps. So,
absolutely.
anyways.
Yeah, I think for San Diego, it's interesting because I come from Northern Virginia, so like obviously there's a huge price hike. Like everything's just like gas, all that stuff is a lot more expensive. So it's very easy to look at rent, which is expensive, and they go, oh man, like this makes it really difficult to, like, but it's not just the rent, it's gas, it's groceries, it's everything. And like, it 100% like does add up. At the same time, what we joke about, at least with some friends I've met in California, we say, you know what, like it's worth it because you're in California. It's just like the premium of being like 5 minutes from the beach. So so like, most grad schools like that you're probably applying to have relatively similar stipends. There's not like it's not like that much is going to change whether you go somewhere here or somewhere there. Like the flex, like it's not going to be that different. So I think that you kind of just to an extent, you know what you're getting into, and you apply to PhD, like, the stipend is like livable, but it's, there's also realities that we're going to, grad school and we're getting paid to do it, where I know plenty of friends going to law school, medical school, et cetera, who are taking a lot of debt to go to grad school. So I think that it's just, you know what kind of situation you're getting into. And yeah.
Thank you all. And I think we have time for one more question. And a lot of students were asking sort of about the work-life balance as a graduate student at Scripps, and perhaps sharing what non-academic activities you partake in.
Sure. I'd say it varies from lab to lab. My first rotation was in a chemistry lab, and that could be a bit more intensive, about 10-hour days. But I'd say the culture of students there definitely support each other, and it made it kind of pass faster. In Washington, I was more into outdoor activities, primarily hiking and fishing, and I found ways to incorporate that into my life in Florida as well. Within the area, there's a whole lot of natural areas in Palm Beach County and wildlife management areas with hiking trails and fishing spots. So those have been my activities so far.
That sounds really nice. Makes me want to come visit Jupiter. Yeah, but we have lots of nice like wildlife here too. We have the beach like right there. I know some people, I'm not a surfer, but some people will like wake up super early, go surf, and then like come to lab. And some labs will surf together here even. Again, not an ocean person, but I'm more of a mountain person. The mountains, they're kind of nearby. You can go to like Julian, go hiking. Mammoth is like 6-ish hours. So like, there's a lot of people that will go like camping and stuff here. I like to rock climb. There's a really great rock climbing gym here that has multiple locations. Arguably better than any rock climbing gyms in Colorado, which is a hot take. But if you like rock climbing, that's good here. I think, yeah, in terms of work-life balance, I think it really depends on the lab you join. I think my work-life balance is pretty good. I tend to set boundaries for myself and know how much I can work, like that's just something you figure out about yourself, I think. Like I can only take X amount before I like crash out, So I tend to just set those boundaries for myself. I think that's a skill you'll just learn over time.
Yeah, going off of what Grace said, I think that it really is lab dependent, but I also think that setting boundaries for yourself is important. And like personally, I know for me, like some weeks are just gonna be different than other weeks. So some weeks I'll be able to go out and do X and Y and Z. And some weeks I'm like, you know what, I got some experiments to do. Like I'm gonna lock in and I'm in lab longer than I would be in the other week. And it kind of just really does vary. But I think it is important to set boundaries for yourself. And knowing that these labs have different kind of standards and like work-life balance, join a lab that works for you. Like for me, that's really important that I have my weekends to go out, and San Diego has a lot to offer in terms of like restaurants and bars and all that. So for me, that's kind of like my thing that I need. So, I'm really trying to minimize working on like Friday nights and Saturday nights and, even some Sundays. But like I said, it really varies to labs, between labs, but yeah.
Also just speaking from San Diego, I think there's for the first part, there's lots of things to do in San Diego that I've already mentioned. I think that the outdoors, I grew up in Virginia, and then I also went to my undergrad in Utah. There's not mountains like Utah or Colorado, but there's fun things outdoors that are somewhat mountainy, and you get to love the desert a little bit. You're pretty close to Joshua Tree, and you're really close to the ocean, which is really fun. You see like dolphins and all kinds of wildlife, and there's sharks, and it's really fun. As well as just like San Diego's a really cool city. We have the Padres, and there's other big sporting events that are here. You can go down to Mexico. I think there's lots of things that are happening in San Diego. It's a very, very fun place to live. And then in terms of work-life balance, I think that it's important to remember one, like look at what lab you join, and then also just, yeah, be mindful of yourself. I think sometimes it's more on you than you think it is. It like feels like, oh, everyone thinks like sometimes there are cases where PIs are like, no, you have to work this amount. But a lot of the time it's like it's really run by you. And so you're the one that decides how much you work, and you're the one that has to say like so what if people think that I like work this much? Like I'm gonna do this for myself. Like I think you just have to take that ownership. And honestly, probably the people in your lab are spending way less time thinking about you and how much time you're working than you think they are. And your PI, honestly, is probably not spending that much time thinking about it, as long as you're like getting results and getting things done and trying to move science forward.
I think just to add on to that, I mean, this point has been beaten to death, but one thing I'll say is that with work-life balance, I think it's important to communicate early on. Sometimes like you can come into a lab with the expectation just based on like, oh, this is the vibe or this is the feel. But yeah, just make sure that like both your PI and you are aware in terms of what expectations you want to set, and that it's something that's agreed upon, and you know, that doesn't cause any conflicts down the line. The other thing, people have talked about how great San Diego is, but I'll just say like with Scripps specifically, just because I'm someone who does enjoy structure, sometimes it's hard, you know, to take the initiative to go out and do things. There are like organizations here at Scripps, like I think like predominantly folks here in their day-to-day are focused on research and, you know, the lab work, but there are things like fun club or, you know, outdoor club, all sorts of activities, you know, to find, you know, outside of the lab, social communities here at Scripps as well. So that's something that, you know, you'll have here. You just gotta, you know, look for it.
I feel like I just got here. I'm on my second rotation right now, so it's pretty new to this place. And one thing that definitely helped me get more involved outside of the lab are these communities on campus. So they have a football group that you can join. Many students are part of it. They have badminton Wednesdays, Sundays, Saturdays. That's pretty cool. And you just go with a bunch of students. You know, you play a couple hours. It's a good way to like get yourself involved outside of the lab. And oh yeah, we also have a students group council. We plan events, we make them happen. I was just painting pumpkins yesterday after lab, getting very bad sequencing data, but still painting pumpkins. It's fun. And so, you know, there are things that you can do outside of campus, inside of campus. I feel like it's pretty, you get involved, get to know people in time.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to switch off to the next session for the general Q&A. For the students, feel free to stick around if you're available to answer a few more questions. But if not, thank you again for your time and joining us and speaking about your experiences. Highly valued. So appreciate it.